Hello, I'm horror cartoonist Dennis St. John. I draw monsters and write twisted tales. As you can imagine, I was a little obsessed with Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Lucky for me, so were most of my high school friends, all except one. One friend who stubbornly refused to join the Scoobies. So here we all are, 20-some-odd years later. I'm teaming up with Doc Travis, John, Teach Landis, and maybe a special guest or two, and we're going to make our friend, Michael Poley, watch one episode of Buffy a week until he's no longer the Buffy Virgin. Welcome to Buffy Virgin, a spoiler-free Buffy the Vampire Slayer podcast. We're talking time loops, and Fruit Loops because we're watching Season 6, Episode 5, Life Serial. Make sure to subscribe to hear all the Buffy content and give us a rating. I am your host, cartoonist Dennis St. John. We have a special guest for 3 episodes in a row.
It's a trilogy.
David Yoder is awesome. Yoder.
I couldn't even wait for you to introduce me, but yes, here I am.
And why don't the rest of you guys introduce yourself with the level of sophistication of your surveillance setup?
Well, my name's John, and I feel like I got a pretty sophisticated system. I've got my webcam that I'm talking on right now, my other webcam that I don't use, and I have a number of broken, half-taken-apart security cameras in a box.
Of course you do.
My name is Travis, and I'm less sophisticated than John. I just have 2 regular security. I just have 2 cameras in my house.
Well, my name is Michael. I'm the Virgin. I've only seen up to Season 6, Episode, is this 5 already for Serial? Yep. Life Serial. And I have a great reverse surveillance system where I have 2 phones, got a webcam watching me, I got Google Home, and I'm on the 2nd floor of an apartment so I can look down on the world. So I guess that's pretty good. Classic surveillance, we call that.
Cool. All right. Well, before we get into Life Serial, we're going to do reactions for Season 5, Episode 20, Spiral. John, why don't you read Joanne's comments?
Okay. Joanne Wilkinson says, fun and interesting insights as always. I agree. The Knights should really be updating their weaponry throughout the years. As to why they haven't killed Ben yet, I think I remember the general saying in this episode that despite their efforts, the identity of the human male has never been discovered, which I suppose makes sense since none of them would remember if they did. Looking forward to more episodes. I love hearing your thoughts and your views.
Yay.
Yeah, that's a really nice comment. Thanks, Joanne.
And Garrett Thatcher says, the writers said yes, Buffy killed humans, but that it was self-defense. Though she had already tried to murder Faith back in Season 3 and threatened to beat her to death on Angel in Sanctuary, so killing for self-defense is a bit tame.
Tame?
All right, so let's find out what Life Serial is about by listening to the summary.
The summary.
In Life Serial, Buffy has to figure out what to do with her life. Should she A, go back to school? Should she B, get a job in construction? Should she C, work at the Magic Box? Or should she D, hope that someone intervenes? Life would be hard enough for Buffy without the trio interfering with every aspect of her life and competing in a game of one-upsmanship. Warren distorts time and causes Buffy's life to fast forward. Andrew summons demons to destroy Buffy's chances of making it in manual labor, and Jonathan creates an endless time loop that Buffy can only escape by making a sale. So what's Buffy to do? Get drunk, watch Spike play Kitten Poker, and in her darkest moment, Giles shows up with a check.
All right, and now let's do great lines.
Great lines.
My favorite line from the episode was, "Stop touching my magic bone!" And that was Jonathan.
And I enjoyed at the opposite end of the spectrum, Willow's line, social phenomena don't have unproblematic objective existences. They have to be interpreted and given meaning by those who encounter them. I agree with Willow. I think it's a nice point. But I also liked when Anya said, don't be nervous. Just do what I do. Just picture yourself naked. People who don't feel nervous about social situations will never understand people who do.
The idea that being naked would somehow ease it is insane. I picked 2. I did from Buffy while she's kind of drunk. I'll beat them up for information, but not to defend your right to gamble for kittens, which, by the way, is stupid currency. And I kind of agree with this opinion from Warren. This is from Andrew. Timothy Dalton should get an Oscar and beat Sean Connery over the head with it. All right. Do you guys have any?
I guess not. I guess I totally spaced on this part of it.
I like the Anya quote the best about just picture yourself naked, which is just quirky and funny Anya.
Yeah.
There's something about the nerd humor which was just so too personal for me to really laugh too hard at.
That's true. Yeah. I said off camera that the thing about having these nerds on this episode is they do all the pop culture references for you.
Right.
Kind of changes what we even do. All right. Let's jump into the kill count. So 3 demons got liquefied. The same mummy hand was killed at least 3 times. And I count 1 dead, but then reset customer. I think that mummy choked her out.
Oh, okay.
All right, let's jump into weird notices and trivia.
Weird noticings.
Well, at the start of the episode, the family's having this nice fancy sit-down meal with wine. And it's how do you have a fancy meal and then tell Buffy she's broke? It just doesn't make any sense.
I also feel based on the way they were spending Buffy's money when she was dead, she probably paid for this meal also.
Yeah, Buffy, we spent the last of your money on this nice dinner that you weren't a part of. What are you going to do now?
So can we all agree that what do you want to do with your life as a question is the worst question you can ask another human, and it's rooted in a deep condescending place? Because when Buffy walks in and Buffy, I actually couldn't understand what Giles said at first because it sounded like he was asking about Buffy about being a woman or something. I don't know why I misheard that so many times because I watched this episode twice, right? And then he's like, what are you doing? What are you going to do with your life? Right? And it's
who is he? Cyndi Lauper's dad?
What are you doing with your life, Giles? What are you doing with your life? I wish Buffy reversed it. Instead, she gets into it.
Yeah, that'd be great. She's we've all been worried about you for years, Giles.
Apparently he's financially well off, though, as the end of the episode indicates.
Oh, yeah, no, I think he's loaded. Yeah, no, it's totally condescending. It's a total, dad move.
And as an adult, I feel I get sometimes now to participate in the asking of this question to young people. Other adults want me to, be in the room and, hey, you should talk to my son. Hey, what do you do in your life, buddy? What do you want to do? And it's oh God, I don't want to plus and yes and any of this shit.
I have to do some light careers counseling kind of conversations in my job. And this conversation never goes anywhere good because I don't think anybody knows the answer to this question, even when they're already in the midst of doing what they're going to do with their life. Yeah. Much less somebody who's in late adolescence or early 20s or whatever. You're they're gonna have any idea.
I mean, it's a question that's designed to fuck with you. It's literally you could ask anyone on the street, "What are you doing with your life?" And they would get an existential crisis, a mini one right in front of you. It's you could also ask, "How are you doing?" 3 times, and that would all get to the same place. But how are you really doing?
No,
but come on, how you
really doing? You're stressing me out.
Well, on a lighter note, the van that the nerds have, there's no way that Death Star is painted on, as they seem to be implying. I
can believe that's a master airbrush, masterfully airbrushed.
It was an
airbrush. I just say if Andrew can do that, that should be what he does. That should be what he's doing with his life. Because that's some very high level skill.
Yeah, the details on there, he would need a bunch of I don't know, cardboard, little cutouts for the areas he's gonna paint or whatever. It looked like he was just doing it freehand, and it's no freaking way. That's not happening. Without any reference or anything. I don't know.
That's the level of nerd he is.
Okay, he's better than I am then, I guess.
Yeah. They're supervillains. We're not. I heard a funny Tom Link story last night. I'm friends with somebody who knows him from LA, from her LA days. And she said that when he first was cast as the vampire back in season 5, they were working on Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. And he had to come to work after the first, like, makeup test with, like, literally bloody eyes. Not even bloodshot, but bloody. Because, like, the people doing the makeup were not being gentle about putting in the, like, vamp makeup. So that sounds terrible. So I'm glad for his sake, that he's not wearing the vamp makeup anymore.
Oh my god.
Not getting stabbed with fingers in the eye.
Coming back to the van for a second, I just want to. I spent a lot of time freeze framing and looking at all the details of this amazing battle van, which is called the Death Star, by the way. That's actually the name of the van because at one point you can see on one of the when you see the image of the security camera that's from the van, it says something like Death Star exterior. So that's the name of the van. It's called the Death Star. So the Death Star has the following things in it. It has a beaded curtain. It has an espresso machine. It has an electric fold-up scooter in the back, which I like to think of as sort of the escape pod from the van. It has a koosh ball. It has a gigantic super soaker. It's got separate analog clocks for time zones in Tokyo, Moscow, and Sunnydale. And my favorite part of the van is that it runs Mac OS 9, which is a very classy operating system.
Thank you, John, for all that. Who do you think would win, the battle van or the turtle van?
Oh, definitely the Death Star battle van. Totally. It's a classy van. In a classy van competition. I don't know if it's who can launch the most plastic tiny pizzas.
John, I know you pulled a quote from the sociology class, but I feel like what they're saying just doesn't make any sense to me. I'm relating to Buffy in that scene. Like, it's just gobbledygook, like, not intelligible.
Yeah, no, I think actually what he's talking about is social construction of reality, which is, I suppose, is the idea that reality itself is something that we all kind of have to agree on. So, like Willow says that, cultural events aren't something that have unproblematic social existences. So, like it's March right now, but it wasn't March for the Aztecs, right? So March is not an objectively existent phenomenon in the month of March. It's something that's socially constructed. And then they kind of talk back and forth about the degree to which, reality is something that is decided by the individual versus it's something that's decided by society. Most of what they say makes sense.
Except it's bullshit because literally they're not talking back and forth. They're just quoting the text at each other because it's a rote memorization class. So it's like this idea of like, oh, we all socially construct our reality based on our individual thoughts and like views, but you all have to have the same thoughts as views as me, Mike. So really, I'm constructing reality because I'm the teacher.
This is this insane like dream of a class too, where like you go in and teach and everyone's done the reading really well. Like that doesn't exist. Like there is no undergraduate class that goes like this. Like it's more like you call on somebody and then like the students look at you like for like 10 minutes.
Seems more like philosophy subject the way like the discussion was going than like sociology. That's not, I don't know.
I think this falls happily under sociology. There's a lot of things that skirt that borderline between soc and philosophy.
It's definitely not a hard science, I'll tell you that.
It's a perfect emotional scene though, because like we've all had that experience though of like being places we don't belong. Like you just stepped into the wrong room in your life, and you're like, oh, that's what happens in this room. Whoops, I don't belong here.
Don't they say that she's auditing the class? That Buffy's supposed to be auditing? Like that's not what auditing a class is, right? Like isn't that usually like a master's student that's like basically TAing or something? Like it's not just sitting in on your friend's class, that's also taking a class.
This is just testing the waters of auditing, right?
No, I mean an audit is when you are not officially enrolled but you still get to go to the class. I've audited classes and sometimes professors will make you do it officially through the registrar's office. But sometimes it can just be you're literally just sitting in on the class but not getting a grade.
I went to art school. I don't know these things.
Well, I felt like I didn't speak English when I was listening to whatever they were talking about. Like I was dizzy. I was like swimming. And I thought to myself, am I having a stroke? Because I don't understand anything of what they were saying.
Thank you, Travis. Yes.
Well, that first time distortion nightmare that Warren sets up, like as part of his time distortion nightmare, since they all have like their gamified versions of fucking with Buffy happening this episode, that stuff is crazy. The idea that time would speed up and then do it just for you and then everyone else. I mean, I assume you're just standing there like a catatonic zombie, right? But like, you're not aware of the time the time that's taking place. Like, this is literally an amazing nightmare. Like this depiction of it.
I do like that the first time she experiences it, she's looking at like a Renaissance art book, and it's like a heavenly image, which feels like it's both like maybe a reference to where she's been, or maybe even just that she's just hanging out with Angel. I think that's a pretty neat little thing.
I saw the visualization of time freezing as like kind of the reverse Flash or like Quicksilver, like in the X-Men movies or Flash and Justice League, where they're going super fast and everyone's moving like super, but like she's basically the other person there, and she's surrounded by a world of flashes that are like running into her and stuff. Like,
so if other people are experiencing her as frozen, that means when she was crawling across the college campus, somebody kicked her. Which is shitty as hell.
She's going so slow.
Or Tara saw that she was like gone like catatonic and frozen and like ran halfway across the hallway. Was like, why are you being so slow, Buffy?
Well, we don't see like her trying to like get Buffy to move. Maybe like, it just jumps to the end. I kind of wonder how long she blocks that water fountain. But also, when she does find the device that Warren planted on her, it's so small and it like has such like super technology, and it has a freaking like camera in there too. Like, how is that possible?
They're very
advanced. And miniature explosives.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah.
Listen, if they just sold their tech, they'd be billionaires. But that's not what they're here for.
They'd be trillionaires. They'd run the world.
It's not about making money. It's about taking money.
It's about how the Buffy bot like appears like pale, like a tame, like rejected, technology. It's like, oh, that Buffy bot, that lifelike, super strong robot human.
Also, so they call it an inhibitor, which implies like it's something happening to Buffy. But when Warren gets to the van and they watch it, they're experiencing Buffy time, which means that technically they sped up the world around her, which is even more advanced technology.
Well, that's also true of the time loop spell. They're also watching the time loop, watching from Buffy's perspective. So all, with the exception of the demons, all the spells and things that they do to Buffy, they also do to themselves, which I think must be on purpose, because this is all like this data mining plan to like learn more about Buffy's abilities, apparently. But it's interesting, just thematically, that everything they do to Buffy, they do to themselves.
When you go for revenge, you dig 2 graves.
When you point a magic time controlling finger, there's 3 magic time controlling fingers pointing back at you and your nerd friends.
The problem is, like, how much more data do they need on Buffy? They know
her
real name,
so much.
where she lives, all of her friends.
They have everything Spike gave her when they made the Buffy bot.
Her entire high school career. Like, they know more about her than any other demon or organization.
They know that Anya likes money. I mean, they have everything, right?
Like, Jonathan is legit friends with Buffy.
Yeah, he totally burned that bridge doing this game.
Well, not yet. I mean, I don't think she knows Jonathan's behind this yet, right?
That's right.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. I know we don't usually comment on this kind of thing, but I just thought it was weird. Buffy looked like she wore a corset to her college class. Like, that's a very weird wearing outside wardrobe. At least to me.
It was safer there than at the construction site.
Oh yeah, so I was watching this, and like a lot of this nerd shit hits real close to home. I'm sitting there watching them, and he's like, "Okay, what's my score?" And then everybody sits around and is like, "Oh, let's calculate using a complex formula the score that you get for your effort here." And I was like, "What kind of nerd friends sit around and create complex systems to give scores to their other nerd friends?" I was like, "This feels
you mean like for making predictions?
Way too fucking familiar." Yeah, it just felt a little bit too close to home. All of this does, like everything, like the nerds of a certain sort of era, the the sort of the casual sexism, the casual homophobia, the constant insecurity around your friends, and like felt very familiar. It was they've got the number on this culture, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like they're pretty ahead of the curve of mocking the specifics of it.
Yeah.
Not just like nerds, not just the outsider, like nerds, but
It's funny to think too, though, like if this came out now, like who they're targeting or who they're representing, like the backlash that would be represented then on like Twitter and whatever, like of being like, that's not how we are, and like, you know, like, or boycott Buffy then or something like.
Yeah, this is really a nerds of an era. You've really called it out. I mean, totally, they nailed it. This is like a 90s nerd. Boom. Homophobic, insecure, and also like obsessed with technology, you know, for meaningless ends. Meaningless self-serving ends.
There's the beginning part where Warren is like describing all the surveillance camera, and Jonathan's like, don't tell me about it, just tell me about it. Like that, I felt that because I was like, as the nerd friend who was never as like tech savvy as the other nerds. Yeah, let's talk about the construction crew a bit.
This scene is horrible. The whole crew is just a bunch of sexist assholes, and like they're really playing it up to the nines, and like it's all the male bullying stuff that like is normalized within this construction world. And I get it, like certain viewers of this or listeners to this podcast will say like, hey, it's funny, dude, just relax. But like it's like, so it's just a really frustrating scene. And I feel like this episode in particular, it really plays out these horrific male characters and like it for comedy, right? And like the construction crew is the worst.
Did you notice the one guy had a faith he had the faith tattoo, the armband?
Oh no, I didn't notice.
I bet they just had extra like faith stickers. They're like, I just put it on this guy.
I mean, the Gidget insult is weird. That's from another era. Like, I don't relate to the Gidget insult.
That's
like,
that's the writer's generation, not this construction worker.
But yeah, they made a joke about affirmative action, which is why a woman should be working there. Like, hey, don't get the lawyers out. Affirmative action. You know what I mean? I'm like, I've heard that like blue collar argument before. Like, yeah. It just brought me right back into the 90s, the worst parts of it, where I'm like, oh, yeah, affirmative action, right? Because, you know, people of color and women shouldn't be given any advantage. It should all be based on the meritocracy, which means white guys are in charge. I mean, just fuck that. Fuck that argument. Fuck that swirl. I just hate that whole scene. And then, like, calling out Buffy, you know, like, oh, must be on your period because, you know, you're acting so weird. Like, just, she, like, the scene is problematic, you know, because of those characters, but then it's also like they're in their own cloud world where they can't even see reality, where like Buffy is attacked by demons, she protects them all, and then they deny both being protected and the existence of demons. Yeah. And it's like, and she gets in trouble and loses the job. Like, I get she's problematic in part because she like attracts demons, right? That's going to always be an issue for her. And so maybe she shouldn't work in a construction field. Like, she actually can't, right? Because she's going to attract demons and they could damage a thing. But like, the idea that they deny the existence of that world, I mean, it just plays up these characters are just like, they're so insulated from reality, right? It feels like you're entering the Rush Limbaugh zone or something like that. It's just its own world. And like that fact that literally attacked by demons and they don't see it is terrifying. Like, they're fucked.
Are you saying, Mike, that they're sort of constructing a unique reality from their own point of view on one side or another of a gender divide that...
John, take a break.
I was going to say, to play devil's advocate, that like even if the construction workers had been accepting and said like, hey, this is what happened, I think Buffy still would have lost her job, because like whatever she did to that scissor lift, that's probably out of commission for a while. She did like undo a lot of the work that they were doing at that site. Like, there's kind of a point there maybe of like Xander saying the money that they cost.
It didn't seem like that much damage, honestly, other than the scissor lift, which was a really great decapitation. I really liked both these demon designs, and this fight scene was like number one.
Yeah, is it me, or do they blow like the season's entire special effects budget on this episode? There's so many
demons.
There's
like
really good
demon
demon costumes.
Designs.
I'm noticing. I think I'm noticing some design differences for demons from season 6 onward. Like, I think there's less complex details around the face and more prosthetics around the head instead.
Right.
But like that kind of typical Buffy, like really detailed, like lots of lines around the face seems to be going away. But these demons had the like vagina dentata mouth. They were like crazy looking, and they're not even the weirdest demons we see this episode. We'll get into that later. But that construction battle always reminds me of a very specific Avengers comic, which I always remember well because it's the very first Avengers comic I bought. Avengers Annual number 19 from 1990 has a backstory where the Wrecking Crew come to fight the Avengers on a construction lot, and the construction crew is like, oh no, if the superheroes fight, it's going to destroy everything. So they quietly defeat all these supervillains without Captain America noticing.
The construction workers do?
Yeah. Which to me is great, and it really set up this thing of like, in the Marvel universe, basically anyone can be a superhero. It's just whether you decide to or not, because everybody is always super muscular and has access to crazy weaponry.
That's pretty cool.
It's a really solid little short story in the middle of this crazy Avengers Annual.
What did you think of them turning into that CGI goop at the end when they got killed, though, Dennis?
Yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't the best. That reminded me of what was that Nickelodeon show, The Secret Life of Alex Mack? Do you remember that? She became a liquid in that. Our listeners don't know.
I did like that, in spite of the like very like unrealistic CG effect, that it did leave a practical effect of a grease stain.
Yeah.
That kind of sold it at least a little bit.
I like also that it's like in this like competition between the three of them, Andrew's monsters were defeated very easily with not like she got fired, but like that was a very easy fight for her. Did not take a lot of time.
You should have practiced the flute more, I guess.
To me, those monsters look like the closest legally allowed similarity to the Predator that you could use. Like, someone's like, all right, give me the closest legally allowed monster to the Predator, because it had like the pseudo dreads.
Yeah.
I don't know. To me, they just looked like the Predator, but like the distant cousin.
Not as quite as close as a Nausicaan.
I like that they had like full hoodies and gloves on and stuff. So it's like, I like to imagine that was just their heads and their like human body the rest of the way.
Yeah, I mean that's a pretty typical.
Yeah, you can't blow the budget on a full monster. Yeah.
Play Damjat, human.
Like all Starfleet, you talk, but you have no Gramja.
That was apropos of nothing, right? Like you could just say that anytime. Oh, I love it.
All right, sorry, let's move on.
No, it's. I mean, I love it. I don't know do we have a name for this crew of Jonathan, Warren, and Andrew?
They at the end of the
dropped the
episode
name.
called themselves the Trio.
The trio? That's the name?
Yeah.
Well, the trio, which I didn't I watched this twice, did not catch that was what their name was, because that's so not a name. It's like 3 people. It's like, anyway, the trio. Man, they are horrible at cooperation, despite the fact that they appear to have this, amazing unearthly technologies at their disposal, and like are futzing with Buffy in the craziest ways this episode. They do not cooperate at all. They're the competitive thing, like this nerdy dick measuring thing that they're doing, is crazy. It all hits close to home. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, they clearly don't like play enough cooperative games.
They can't even share the binoculars. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Yeah, Andrew was psychotic about that. Warren had them for like a second.
And then I just want to reiterate this point again about nobody wants to acknowledge the existence of the supernatural, and that feels like the whole Buffy versus Angel universes, which I think I've said it before, so just repeating that kind of formula here, where like the supernatural elements, like the monsters, like all the construction crew sees these monsters, but they must not exist, and so nothing needs to change. the social construct of reality can stay the same despite the existence of monsters, despite the existence of time vortexes, despite the existence of the Groundhog Day thing that happens in the retail store, despite that, like, these things, like, nerds can have access to these techs, like, or create these things, like, the world is still, it's the world we know, guys. Like, that's crazy. The amount of stuff that happens in this episode that, like, could collapse, like, our perception of the world as we know it, if it was, like, perpetuated anyway or acknowledged, is crazy. The fact that it's just like a game between three guys, I mean, it just feels like they're three gods, essentially. And they could totally, misplace or, replace the trio with a trio of, like, evil genies. I mean, it's just so crazy. Anyway, that's it. Angel, however, I think would treat this completely differently. Like, Angel as a show would be like, the construction crew would be asking Buffy for help. Hey, we got demons hanging around these guys. I think it's that black van. Like, they would be putting it together. On Buffy, however, it's like Buffy's the only person, her and her friends are the only people who have knowledge of this universe, and everything else is just, like, ignoring it. And anyway, and this is why she can never get a job, because they're ignoring this reality, right? Like, if they ignore the existence of supernatural, Buffy's amazing gifts can never be used.
Yeah, I think Sunnydale's just so used to this happening all the time that they don't, like you said, they don't acknowledge it. Like, we even saw last episode how at the bank, the bank guy was like, he couldn't say exactly why, but he's like, for some reason, houses in this area, like, their value doesn't hold up. And it's like, maybe because there's a vampire attack, like, every single night, like.
It feels especially insane in this episode because it's implied that nobody else is, like, even people in the Scooby Gang are, like, not believing Buffy's experience, and which feels extra insane. Like, at what point do you just believe Buffy? Like, I don't know, man. If I was a member of the gang, I would believe Buffy. So the Magic Box apparently sells sex toys.
Sapphire Ding Dong.
Yeah.
And that's right when Warren says it's so boring and he's falling asleep or whatever. It's like, what?
Yeah, that sounds like the beginning of an interesting story there. It maybe helps me make more sense of, like, how the Magic Box is staying in business and stuff. If they're like,
I mean, a store called the Magic Box definitely would have a back room with just sex toys. I feel like.
Yeah, how is
right?
the Magic Box just not a sex shop? They must get people in there all the time.
There's beaded curtains. Like, walk through for the adult section.
That's what that guy looking for the candle was looking for, I bet.
Am I missing something? I thought the candle was just like a supernatural aphrodisiac, right?
Oh no!
Yes.
Supernatural
Before
Viagra?
the time loop starts, Anya's telling a story, and we don't hear the whole story because it, like, cuts to them watching. But there's this whole thing about, like, a sapphire ding dong, and you're like,
oh.
I was just making a joke that the candle guy was also looking for ding dongs or such. But yeah, since we're talking about the store, Giles's tidbit of, like, treat the store like a library. That's his advice. Like, that's not very good advice for a retail store, I don't think. Like, I work at a bookstore, and I don't think even, like, I've ever heard anyone suggest, like, yeah, we should treat this like a library. That doesn't work.
Mean, it makes sense to me from Giles's point of view because it's, like, what he knows. But it makes literally no sense to tell somebody who's not a librarian.
Also, like, Giles was not very service-oriented when he was a librarian. It's not like
true.
he was really, like, a great librarian. He was not focused on that job
If
at
we
all.
recall back to high school, nobody came into that library.
Or he would close it so they could have their secret meetings, and probably, no one could come in even if they wanted to or something. But yeah.
Yeah, remember the episode Jonathan tried to come in and they were like, what are you doing here? What's going on with Buffy's top?
Okay, so earlier on in the college when the time slowing down, speeding up thing happens, you can see, if you look at the bottom of the dock, Buffy's wearing a pendant that has sort of a black background and then a white little Victorian-looking silhouette of a woman's, a bust of a woman, right? And then later, this scene in the Magic Box that we're on now, she has an outfit, she has this top where there's another sort of silhouette of a Victorian-looking woman that is embroidered as a doily that is a window to her midriff. It's really hard to describe in words, but, like, it's a black top, and then there's an oval-shaped hole in it, which is filled in partly
with a profile.
with the silhouette of a woman's profile that's sort of embroidered like a doily. So it's a doily window to her belly button. It's really strange. It's a very bizarre shirt.
I didn't see that the first time. I did notice that her name tag was down at her hip level, though. Like,
Yeah.
that seemed kind of odd to me.
The name tag's great. Ask me about curses.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting outfits this episode.
That Groundhog Day retail crisis, I don't know how you want to talk about that curse, how that curse works, because that's amazing. It's an amazing nightmare. Again, only an evil genie would come up with this shit. Like the time distortion stuff. And of course, I mean, I haven't seen, and I'm looking forward to Rex because I'm looking forward to seeing the Star Trek and X-Files episodes that this episode is ripping off to see what components are taken from it. Because, like,
I watched that Next Gen episode like this week because I've been doing a season 5 rewatch. It's such a good episode.
The X-Files episode is really good, too.
So which episode is ripping off this? Where does the Groundhog Day thing come from? Or is that, I mean, I'm calling it Groundhog Day. So
yeah, I think that's
Groundhog
fine.
Day?
Yeah. I feel like we have to recommend Groundhog Day because it's like...
But that loop is so insane. And I guess, how is the trio able to see the loop happening? And I guess we were just saying that they... Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I wonder if, like, outside of the shop, time is passing normally, and it's only inside the shop, and it's only really for, like, the 4 people who aren't Buffy inside the shop where the loop, you know. But I don't know. Because if it's, like, affecting all reality, that seems insanely powerful, right?
Yeah, so it's localized time distortion. And then, are they... what is triggering the loop? I'm not trying to be daft. Like, what... How do they get out of the loop? How does she get out of the loop?
When she successfully sells the mummy hand, right? He gave her like a impossible task to complete. Which I don't know if that means he created. I don't know if that means Jonathan actually created the customer, or if this was going to happen no matter what, and it was just like the loop. I don't know the answer to that.
A lot of inside knowledge. If the customer was not part of Jonathan's creation and the mummy hand was like already there, I don't know.
That's a very good mummy hand. I was wondering if it was a reference to Inca Mummy Girl, since that was Jonathan's first episode.
Oh, true.
Jonathan in it is almost killed by the Inca Mummy Girl, and she's stroking his face, and he's like, "Oh, you have rough hands, mummy hands."
Or daddy hands if they're hairy.
I just don't understand how you sell the mummy hand. Like, I don't understand, like, just the very idea.
Dude,
How do
totally.
you sell
I don't know
this?
why they keep it loose. That
Yeah,
seems
why is
insane.
there not a cage? Like, clearly this could all be solved, but there is actually literally, there's a bird cage in that basement, which we've seen in previous episodes, which you can see in the background of this one as well. They have a Victorian bird cage.
That's a lot of space for the mummy hand. It can walk around.
Yeah. I mean, it's like having like a wild tiger in the basement, and somebody being like, "Oh, I like to buy your tiger." Sure, let me go down there and being mauled by the tiger every time.
Yeah, I was expecting the recommendations to be like Addams Family and Family Values or Evil Dead.
Well, I've definitely already recommended Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2, but we can always do it again. Yeah. John made a GIF.
It's pretty good.
Click on it now.
I really
I'm
like
glad you
that
did-
shot with the tongs.
No,
That
it's
makes me
good.
laugh every time.
It's
That's
just
very good.
it's so crazy that this problem's so crazy. I don't even know how you construct this problem. So I guess like that's what I mean. The retail thing, like you actually have to sell something in order to get out of this loop because she has to be good at her job. She has to be good at something, right? Because she's on kind of these 3 different quests, and they're all like slightly confused why she has 3 different jobs, but like who cares? But like she's trying to figure out what her thing is in life, right? That's kind of what we're seeing kind of play out, and these are 3 kind of job scenarios. Work, this job,
Right.
construction, retail, like, and
I
she
like how Andrew didn't even know the name for working retail.
Yeah.
Some sort of shop sales girl person.
that is sort of amazing for this supposed genius who doesn't know what the fuck this job is. Ugh.
I mean, I really, it does capture very well what like working service jobs feels like that sense of just doing the same thing over and over again, and that it's completely fruitless.
All I could do was just kept thinking about if me, because I'm my life is a bit strange right now. It's like one of us just like going to work with like each of our friends and like how wild it'd be for me to go to work with Mike and then Dennis. And
I love that.
John, and then like all of our struggles and just like that's basically what it is. It's like your friend is like apocalyptic and they don't have anywhere to go, and you're like, well, come to work with me. Maybe this will help you find your way in life.
Yeah, I like that idea as like an adult that just doesn't know what to do, and so they're like, I'm gonna do like one at a time, like what everyone I know does.
No, that's
this is What's My Line, Part 3.
And we've talked about it, but yeah, the solving the puzzle is to, have a satisfied customer. But I part of me was thinking the first time through, like, well, maybe she'll figure out what that candle guy really needs, because like that would be a satisfied customer as well, right? If he got what he wanted and left.
Sapphire Ding Dong.
Well, they already sold that, so I guess he can't get.
I think it was returned. I think that's the end of the story.
Ooh, secondhand Sapphire Ding Dong.
I mean, so just based on the amount of like suffering she was put through, Jonathan very clearly won that competition, right? Everybody else is.
Oh yeah, I think Jonathan definitely wins. Maybe not on points, but
Really? You think Jonathan wins? Gosh.
I mean, like, all Buffy had to do for the other ones was crawl across a campus and then, like, beat up some creatures, which she's very good at. This is the one that, like, genuinely made her suffer, made her cry.
Yeah, it broke her down.
Yeah.
Oh, and I forgot to mention earlier, when she breaks Giles' glasses, when he says the thing about the library for the 50th time or whatever, like, I was legitimately, like, a little bit horrified, just, like, for myself, thinking, like, oh no, glasses, like, you need those to see. Like,
I think it's so offensive that they would make her pay for the shipping.
Yeah, that is ridiculous.
I mean, like, I would have quit too.
Yeah,
Like, even
yeah.
if she hadn't suffered through like a Sisyphean hell.
That clearly indicates to me that Anya is a bad boss. I don't know.
Totally.
Like,
No, she's
walk
just
away
like a
from
really, she's like super American. Like she's like the definition of American capitalism. But like the idea that like, it also shows that like, that's like, you know, work, that's like work time. It's not like friend time. Friend time would be like, oh yeah, this girl who's taken more punches from me than I can count, and blah, 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 blah. I was just like so furious at everyone in that scene. And Giles like, I think Buffy would understand. Oh my God. Was that the real timeline when she crushed his glasses, or was that was that our timeline?
that was
No.
one of the ones that got relooped.
I thought it was. I thought like this is a great time. The real timeline is when she crushes his glasses and makes the sale.
Travis is
And he just
only
kinda,
in
like,
this for punishing Giles. It's the only reason
Yeah,
he's watching
really.
this episode.
No, I'm just saying that's like a real reaction. That just like that's like all right, fine.
I just thought of another. I know we already have a growing list of recommendations, but Community, the episode, is it Remedial Chaos Theory or something, where they're playing, they roll the die and like they get different outcomes. Like, it's kind of similar, but
Kitten Poker. I really love this scene. It's like just really fun to see all these charming looking demons. This is I don't know if he gets named this episode, but there's a fun looking skin demon. One that was not as charming is the bartender with the snake tongue, because I feel like that was probably just a real guy with a split tongue, and I did not like it. But I liked all those other demons, and Kitten Poker is totally insane. Apparently play it as food.
But it's also
Kittens, they're
like
delicious.
they act like it's. I don't understand how the economics of it work, because Spike shows up with no kittens. Somebody stakes him, and then he wins all the kittens. But doesn't he have to like pay back the person who staked him some kittens? I'm very confused about how it all works. It doesn't seem like they're
That's
really
true.
thinking it through.
I mean, this is clearly a gambling scene written by someone that doesn't gamble, right? Like,
Yeah, how does Kitten Poker last more than one hand?
And also, apparently everyone is cheating. Like, all of them are cheating, which is like makes it like Calvin Ball. Like, it's just like.
Remember in Next Gen when Data plays poker against the 19th century folks, and he
Totally.
gets staked
Time
for,
Zero,
yeah.
Part 2. Good episode.
And what happens to Data?
I mean, he wins. He takes everybody's money,
Yeah.
including the card sharks, who I think are supposed to have been cheating also, right? But Data, obviously, the card counter.
That card could have fallen in that fold a week ago.
And I always enjoy a good comedic Sarah Michelle Gellar performance. And she's really funny. making the blah sound every single time she drinks, and then her getting so drunk she can't like swing at the monster. Very funny.
Yep.
Brings me back to season 4 when she was doing the comedy shtick more.
This is the first time we see her drunk, right? Since Beer Bad, right?
First time since Beer Bad. That's right. We're going to have to address a prediction about this.
And as she's drunk, she drunkenly kicks Jonathan in demon disguise there. And to me, I think what he was going for was like the Tim Curry and Legend kind of look there. I love the wings demon too, though. Like, man, it's so awesome looking, that demon.
If you go down to the bottom of the doc, I've compared it to both the Tim Curry Legend, and it always reminds me of Mignola's first drawing of Hellboy. I mean, basically, they're all riffing on the same thing, which is like your like classic devil,
Right.
and he's even got kind of the Hellboy gauntlets on both arms, and he's got the skull crotch, which kind of reminds me of Dungeon. It's funny stuff.
And he's got the proportional strength of Jonathan.
Yeah. I will simply die.
All right, well, Giles wrote a check to Buffy. Like, seriously, like, he could have saved her at any time, but chose this moment to save her, I guess. He writes her a check.
Yeah, it's about time.
Travis, isn't Giles doing something responsible as a father figure, writing a check?
Yes, there are some points. There are some negatives. Okay, there are some positives. I realized I was very negative about Giles last episode. Yes, money. There's two parts. Number one, you're in trouble when someone hands you a check for an insane amount of money, and you're like, oh yeah, I'll accept it. Let's be honest here. You're in serious trouble if someone writes you a giant check and you're just like, yeah, no, I'm going to take it. So let's be honest about that. Like, let's be honest about that. It's nice that Giles gave her the money. However, it clearly is control. I mean, money is control. I mean, so I'm getting some. The thing is, she needed money not like at the end of the episode. She needed money last episode. But somehow it took all this time to give her money, let her go through all this and fail. And I know it's a whole trope with television, blah, blah, blah. But like, honestly, as much as, yes, people need money, they need shelter, they need food. But it's like, this was just money. And it's like, Buffy wanted more. Buffy's always needed more than just money. But it's fine, it's great, she got money. But, what's going to happen when that runs out?
I mean, I think what it speaks to for me in this is like, money means everything when you don't have it, right?
Yep.
And that's what it really feels like they're like that, like how emotional that money is to her, like how it reminds her of her mom, everything. Like that's just how important it is when you have none of it. And like, yeah, Giles should have. I mean, honestly, like Giles is getting paid by the Watchers Council to do nothing. She should have been subsidized for like a long time, but.
Maybe it's like college sports. You can't pay the athlete until a certain point.
That assumes that at some point Slayers go pro instead of just
she
die.
survived past the year that she wasn't supposed to, I guess.
Hey, teachers get paid, students have to pay. It's just the reality. All right? Like, college is like the most irresponsible choice we can all make because it puts us in debt or whatever, right? Like, Giles is the teacher.
But since we're talking about the check, how many zeros do you guys think are on that check? Like, just seriously.
Right.
I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt that, like, he didn't write the check last episode because maybe he had to move some funds around to make sure that check would clear. Because he also did say, like, right after he handed it to her when she's like, oh, this is too much. He's like, well, you can rip it up. He's willing to take it back, like, immediately after giving it to her. And Buffy also mentions her deadbeat dad, which I feel like hasn't even been mentioned on the show in quite a while here.
I mean, we brought it up before, right? It's great. It's exciting to see the show acknowledge it, but like, should be Dad's check, right?
Yeah.
Like, you didn't even know Buffy died in the first place, right?
Does her being dead affect like can she go vote? Like, what does she died, right? Like,
I mean, we've talked about this before. We think that they didn't declare any death.
Oh,
right?
okay, but they buried her in a
secret.
cemetery.
Yeah. you guys have argued she was buried in a cemetery. I think she was buried in the woods.
Okay,
but just
like an animal.
Xander built a headstone because he's could apparently do anything construction related.
Well, I have to wait to catch up to that episode when you guys release it.
Yeah, we'll see if we ever air it. Why doesn't John talk about Andrew's shirt?
Probably should have talked about this sooner, but so Andrew has this shirt, and let me describe it really quickly. It features a picture of a woman who is completely naked, save a cowboy hat, and she's kneeling down, and the woman's body is labeled like a butcher's diagram, where all the parts of her body are like labeled like rump and thigh and like they're cuts of meat. And it says Kansas Cattle Queen and break the dull beef habit is what it says. This shirt has like this, apparently, I spent the entire afternoon researching the history of this shirt and this image because it apparently has this like really complicated and rich history. So this shirt was released the same year this episode came out by Urban Outfitters in 2001. Urban Outfitters wound up withdrawing the shirt from shelves after somebody complained. It was somebody who was an admin assistant in the Women's and Gender Studies program. Obviously said the shirt was really super sexist. Women's and Gender Studies program at Yale University. She complained, and then Urban Outfitters wound up withdrawing the shirt, which actually started off Urban Outfitters like doing this whole series of like super edgelordy merchandise and then withdrawing it from shelves, which is obviously free publicity. So there's like, they did like, there was the Ghettopoly board game that they released and then pulled back. And then there was the t-shirt that said, everyone loves a Jewish girl, and it had pictures of dollar signs and shopping bags. And then they released that and then pulled it back. And so like Urban Outfitters, this is the first instance of them doing that, is this shirt that Andrew's wearing. And so obviously this is where they first learned that like you can do something super edgelordy, pull it back, and like that's free publicity. Like you like by withdrawing it and doing the right thing, you still like you kind of market to both sides, right? But this actual image of this woman as a butcher's diagram has this kind of crazy history. It was on the cover of a book titled "The Sexual Politics of Meat: A Feminist Vegetarian Critical Theory." It's apparently a pretty important book in this field. And what it is it's kind of making an argument that I haven't read the entire thing. I kind of flipped through it. It's making the argument that the way that we consume meat and the way that we consume women and images of women sexually are these connected things in culture, and trying to make all these connections there. And so Carol J. Adams, who wrote the book, she got this image of this from apparently a beach towel that was released in the 1970s. And this was like released in multiple versions as like a tourist thing. And so there's a version that says Puerto Rico on it. There's a version that says Glen Falls, Michigan on it. And then I found one that you can buy online on this like Etsy type store. There's a guy selling it in Dayton, Ohio, a town that we are familiar with. And my favorite part is that the guy selling it, his username is Brohio.
Mm.
So anyway, I just really enjoyed it. I spent my entire afternoon tracing the history of this image from like this kind of tourist trap beach towel in the 70s to being this piece of this feminist critique in a sort of a cultural studies book in the early 90s, and then being this kind of ironic edgelordy t-shirt in 2001, which is why Andrew's wearing it.
And not that it matters or anything, but the Urban Outfitters version is clearly a redraw.
It is, yeah.
And I think the thick lines of the redraw are part of the appeal of the shirt. If it was just like a straight print from that beach towel.
It would look like shit. Yeah, they definitely redrew it so that it would make a decent silk screen.
Thanks for doing that research. I was actually mildly curious about that shirt, but I couldn't pause my my Hulu in time to even get a glimpse of it. It was just like, that's a woman's backside. What the heck is going on? And then I'm like, not worth it. But thank you, John, for taking the time to do what others cannot.
Yeah, I may take some time and read a little bit of The Sexual Politics of Meat. It seems like a really intense and interesting read.
This makes me feel dirty because just yesterday I was looking at cattle diagrams because I was trying to figure out what cut of the meat is tri-tip.
I was
thanks for
thinking
that.
if George Costanza read this book, maybe he got the wrong lesson, and that's where he tried to combine the sex and food together. But
Pastrami's making me blush. All right, let's do questions for the group now.
Questions for the group.
Mike, you got the first one here.
Oh yeah, I mean we grimaced at it, but can anyone understand the point system that's being used to determine who's the winner of this informal contest among the trio?
I don't have enough data.
Yeah, apparently there's a 50-point bonus for ingenuity. There is a 30-point bonus for making physical contact with the Slayer, which maybe Jonathan should get that retroactively since he got kicked by her.
It feels like they didn't even rate Jonathan, which is unfair.
Yeah. But overall, yeah, I don't really understand how the overall system works. I'm sure there's a spreadsheet.
and there seemed to be a multiplier.
Oh, definitely.
Like, I don't know, when they first gave Warren his points, it was like 7 out of 10, and then they multiplied it to like 70 or so. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, there's something like that going on. Yeah.
So they never reveal enough about the system to know how to use the system.
Okay. Yeah. So you rate it out of 10. You rate you rate how much you screwed with Buffy out of 10, and then you multiply that by 20. Yes. So that's why he got 140 points. It was 7 out of 10, so he gets 140 points. Right. Plus bonuses, and the bonuses are apparently physical contact,
Getting somebody fired.
ingenuity, getting fired. There's bonuses that seem to be ill-defined.
I like our rating system. It's simple.
Gosh, why didn't any of us take up stalking? Because we could have done it as a group and really had some fun. Yeah. We just needed the point system. Okay, who's the best Bond?
Connery.
I think actually this didn't exist at the time, but I think Daniel Craig.
Yeah, I like Daniel Craig. I'm not a big Bond fan.
Yeah,
but,
I don't really care about James Bond, but I do like Sean Connery the best.
I do like. I will watch a Bond movie for sure, even though it's not my favorite. But I agree with Warren that Dalton is underrated. Timothy Dalton is probably my favorite actor outside of Bond. I mean, Sean Connery obviously has better movies, but
You're the man now, dog.
and worse movies. He has more movies. But Timothy Dalton's a really good actor, and he hasn't done enough. But I really liked him in Penny Dreadful. He's good as Prince Baron in Flash Gordon. He's got some good stuff.
Yeah.
I vote for Roger Moore. I like Roger Moore's Sean Connery movies more. He was in goofier. I like Roger Moore's Bond movies more because he was in goofier movies.
Yeah.
And Roger Moore was definitely more of a beefcake than Connery. Roger, you know what I mean?
I respect that Roger Moore quit when he put together the math of how gross it was, what Bond was doing. There's a story of he realized he, as an actor, was older than the mom of one of the Bond girls, and he's like, that's fucked up. So
really?
Yeah.
That's why he quit?
I that's what I heard. I don't know if that's the full story, but Bond is super gross. People shouldn't be making Bond movies.
Yeah.
I think the best Bond is Tom Cruise as Ethan Hunt in the Mission Impossible movies, but that's I like those movies. Those are fun for me. I don't know.
The best Bond is Alexander Siddig as Julian Bashir, as whatever the Bond-like character was that he played on the Holosuite.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I watched that Casino Royale that Peter Sellers is in that has the 20 Bonds. That movie doesn't really hold up as well as I thought it would, partially because of Woody Allen, but it's very much the comedy of the time, and you're yeah.
Does any Peter Sellers hold up? Because seriously, I mean, it's such of an era. I can't go back to any Peter Sellers comedy.
Being There is still Being There, and
Being There is really good.
Dr. Strangelove.
Dr. Strangelove, yeah.
I loved the Pink Panther movies as a kid, but I don't.
I think kids would still like the Pink Panther movies, right?
Yeah, there's probably just a bunch of racist and sexist terrible things in there that I'm not remembering, but yeah.
Well, my real question would be like, who's the best Sherlock? But like for Bond, I also agree with Dennis. I think that Daniel Craig is the most fun, and I wish Pierce Brosnan was more fun. But anyway,
Yeah. GoldenEye's good, but it's only GoldenEye.
Nobody chose for Her Majesty's Secret Service that Bond, right?
Right. I forget the guy's
George
name.
Lazenby.
Yeah. Look at how much we all know about Bond. I feel like that's just one of those things like you culturally absorb even if you're not into it.
Yeah, I
Like,
don't give like any shits about James Bond, but I know all this like bullshit trivia just as like a weird contact buzz from being a nerd.
Yeah. It's like, well, it's the intersection of like bro and nerd culture is Bond.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
well, yeah, because Bond is a bro nerd, right?
Yeah.
It's definitely a bigger thing in the UK than it is in the States, like because it's like their action thing that they is kind of like
their
theirs.
boy.
And I'm just like in the media, me among all the other media teachers at school, like the new Bond. Everybody's talking about the new Bond movie, and I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah. I get
You
sick
ever
of
show up with like a sleazy Landish, John Landish?
I ask, has anyone worked construction here? Because I haven't. I've done contract work a little, but I haven't like worked on a real construction site. Mike, have you?
Yes.
Yeah. I thought you did. All right.
Is it just a check-in? I mean,
Yeah,
yes,
it's
it's
just
the
a
most
Is there a story
repulsive.
there?
I mean, yes, it's the most repulsive culture of people I've ever been around in my life. I would say that roofers are the worst. And I don't know if
Dude,
that counts as construction, but I mean, that,
Yeah, I think so. Right.
Did any ladies take a Diet Pepsi break to watch you take your shirt off?
never. I didn't work in the classy New York cliche construction company. I worked at just a generic apartment-related construction company. And man, just the worst. The grossest stories I've ever heard in my life, even now, have never been topped by the stories I heard from roofers when I worked briefly in construction for, obviously for my dad, when I was too young to be working with these older men who also, just as, the bizarre fatherly figures they were. I mean, it's just the weirdest people because you basically have to be uneducated to work in construction, which I don't say to be a dick. It's literally like smart people pretend they have less credentials in order to work in this field. Like, because they wouldn't hire you if they think you're going to be too smart or whatever. But that said, there's also just so many drug addicts in that profession. And I don't know why that is. But at least in my experience, working in construction in Dayton, Ohio, it's crazy.
Probably
Crazy
regulate
people.
The pain from the physical labor, right?
Right, it's the labor team. So it's like, are you felon? Cool. The hammer's over here. I'll tell you one of the gross stories later. It's like, if you like.
So, if what role do you play with your nerd broy friends? Are you more of a Jonathan? Are you an Andrew, or are you a Warren?
How do you define these?
Yes, thank you.
That's a good question. I think Andrew is the guy who finds himself being a nerd among nerds. Right? Like he gets shit for having too specific interests and knowing too much and caring too much, which is like what you shit on nerds for, but he gets shit on that like by other nerds. And I suppose Warren is the nerd leader, like he's the alpha male in the nerd crew. I don't know what Jonathan's role is. Anybody want to define Jonathan's role?
Victim.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's the nerd who doesn't have specific knowledge. He's only a nerd because he doesn't fit in anywhere else.
Yeah.
Except now he has magic powers, so maybe not. I take the fifth on this question.
I would say we're probably all Andrews more than Jonathan or Warrens, except for Mike, who's a Warren.
I relate to being more of a Jonathan, so there's that factor, but yeah.
I mean, I'm going to guess the guy who has jonathan.com on his wall might be a Jonathan.
I was a little worried that Warren, to me,
David
like,
is the real
in these
Jonathan
episodes,
here.
I get that he's the leader, but he's also kind of the leader because he's an asshole and he like picks on everyone and like punishes them or does things they don't want to do behind their back.
Yeah.
So I kind of would worry that I'm the Warren of like just like an unintentional asshole at times to my friends, maybe. But right, Dennis?
No, I don't think Mike's a Warren. I think he's just a leader. Mike's just more of a leader, but he's not the jerk part of Warren.
Oh, well, thank you. I mean, the leader thing is really just, I feel like I'm good at doing things without thinking about them. Like, that's literally, it's just this, just that thing.
Like
and that's like a Warren. I can start doing things without thinking them through. Hello, let's get started.
I'll say in high school, it felt like we were all Jonathans, but that's just, I think, the insecurity of the age. Like when you're in high school, like we were definitely just all Jonathans in high school.
All right, I think that's questions. So why don't we do themes and deep stuff?
I want to start off with, I think we kind of covered this ground in previous discussion, but I just think it's interesting that the specific hells that are designed for Buffy, most of them are to do with making her feel like she doesn't have access to the same reality as everybody else, or making her feel like her perception of what's going on, like no one recognizing it. So she's sort of being gaslit all the time. Like the time is shifting and nobody treats that like it's real. And then on the construction side, it's really interesting because like the bro construction guys, like they do see the demons, but because of like masculine posturing, they pretend they don't see the demons, which is another way. It's funny though,
they're willing to admit they're willing to create a narration of Buffy beating them all up. And
then we have another. And they have then there's another time loopy thing where again it's about Buffy just doesn't have this connection. Everything I say to you, you're going to forget. So she's the only one who can experience these things. And so it's the hell that Buffy's being put through is not so much that she's doing a time loop or that she's fighting demons, because all that's fairly normal for her. It's that she doesn't have anybody to relate to about it. That's kind of interesting. But the main thing I want to talk about is actually Xander in the construction scene, because Xander is doing the thing which I think I've been guilty of in the past, of being like, oh yeah, my female friend, we're totally friends and I will totally help you get a job and be your person to talk to about how things suck at work, unless it means that I have to risk any of my standing at work because I feel tenuous about how my role at work. So if standing up for you as a woman means that I have to in any way endanger my role at work, I will not help you at all and will just walk you off site. I feel like Xander has a big ally fail here. Because, like, and that's the thing. Nobody feels secure in their like role at work. Like everybody's constantly worried that they're going to lose points at work. And so when you are in a position of privilege, like you're not going to give up 2% of that privilege for anybody because you feel like you have to keep all you can get, which sucks. So, like, I feel shitty. Like, I think Xander's being shitty, but I also like feel like he's being shitty in a way that I've probably been shitty in the past.
Yeah. I like Sarah Michelle Gellar's acting in that when she sees what he's doing and is like,
yeah, she doesn't even bother. Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff, John. I don't feel like I have anything to add to that. Does anyone?
Wouldn't Andrew's spell have made more sense if it was like a perception thing for Buffy, where she just saw the other construction workers as demons? Like, and then she's attacking them that way? Like, especially it was set up that way with the one boss, like, grabbing the, whatever those are, bolt cutters, and walking towards her. It's like, that could be seen as a threat, and then, like, just have him, I don't know, like, maybe that was too obvious, but, like, I feel like that's cleaner than what it was.
Yeah, I think that would have been complicated, though, of like, would Buffy kill a human by accident?
There's that. Yeah, she would maybe like have to face charges or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I think John was right. The theme of the episode is disconnecting Buffy from reality. I think that's like super important for the episodes that come next. So I think this was, to me, that's my take-home theme.
It also is how the episode starts with like Jonathan, what he's saying, how like Buffy always has a plan and she's always like their perception of her is not the reality of her. And it's that thing of like them as like these white male nerd guys that like don't feel like they have any power and feel like they're invisible and they're getting trampled over. Like they want to make who they see as being the person in power who happens to be a woman, like have her feel like how they feel.
Totally.
Which doesn't reflect on our current or like, you know, ongoing political situations or anything.
Awesome, guys. Want to move on to recommendations?
Recommendations.
My first rec is the 2008 Jennifer Lynch movie Surveillance. Jennifer Lynch made Boxing Helena in 1993, and then she didn't direct another movie until 2008, which I feel is crazy. But then she's had a pretty good spree of directing since. Surveillance is has Bill Pullman. He and an actress whose name I forgot are FBI agents, and it's about them doing massive surveillance on these three witnesses to try to connect a serial killing. And it's basically like a Rashomon situation where the stories start to disconnect. And so it also connects to the social construction of reality theme going on here. And the movie has twists and it's like mega violent and everything. But it's a pretty good movie. And I recommend it if you haven't seen it. I am also, because we have to, going to recommend Groundhog's Day. You can't do a time loop without talking about it. It's the classic. It's funny. I'm going to recommend the new time loop movie Happy Death Day, and there is a Happy Death Day 2 horror movie with a time loop. It's better than it like really has any right to be. It's fun. It's like a very like, you know, yeah, it's not going to like blow your mind, but it's like enjoyable. And because we're talking so much about gaslighting and monstrous gaslighting, The New Invisible Man with Elizabeth Moss, super about like gaslighting with creatures. And just because of the title being similar to Life Serial, I'll also recommend the John Waters movie Serial Mom. Super enjoyable. And John, why don't you recommend?
These recommendations actually come from the trio, but of course we have to recommend Star Trek The Next Generation Season 5 episode Cause and Effect, in which the Enterprise repeatedly blows up until Data figures out and sends himself a message into the next time loop in the form of the number 3. And also the X-Files Season 6 episode Monday, in which the bank apparently repeatedly blows up. I actually have not seen that one, but...
Really? Wow.
Yeah, I've been watching X-Files, but I don't think I've seen that one.
I'm just going to watch those eps. Those sound amazing.
Yeah, those
are easier to watch. They're, you know, just an hour instead of movie length. And we did talk about because of the Mummy hand doing Addams Family.
Yeah, I'll recommend Addams Family and Addams Family Values for Thing.
How do you describe a thing?
And Values has Mercedes McNabb in it, right? So.
That's right.
Yeah, she's in both of them. Yeah.
Like watching this episode with the mummy hand, how like, you know, you do the green screen thing, but like for Addams Family to think about like when it's like running along the ground and everything, like that had to be so awful for that performer to have to do that. Like
that's so funny. It's like I feel that way whenever I see a movie with a dog in it.
Oh, like that new Harrison Ford movie with the dog, where the dog isn't actually a dog; it was a human that did motion capture, and then they animated a dog over it. And there's like you can see video or footage of like the guy like, in a green suit that like picks up a newspaper in his mouth and then takes it over to Harrison Ford, and Harrison Ford's like, "Good boy," and then like what?
What the fuck? You're kidding? The Call of the Wild movie?
Yeah, that movie. CGI
I just want to
dog.
watch a movie where Harrison Ford is a dog that's a human. I would see that.
Yeah,
I'm not going to see this Call of the Wild bullshit
version. Yeah, I want to see the guy that. Yeah.
It's like, do you ever see the footage of Ang Lee doing the motion capture for his version of the Hulk?
Yeah.
That shit's amazing.
It's pretty awesome.
All right. That was some good recs, guys. Let's do predictions.
Virgin predictions.
Michael, you are currently overall at a 62.02%. And here in season 6, you're at a 70.59. It's still your second best ever season, with your best being season 2 being a 75%. So let's see how you do. Ooh, going way back here. Let's see. Going back to season 4, episode 5. This would have been Beer Bad, of course.
Beer Bad.
Michael, you predicted that Buffy will not be hungover again. Now, I would really like to deny this because Buffy is sitting there just swigging from the tequila bottle over and over again, plus the whiskey she had in the crypt. However, I'm worried about the precedent it sets for confirming or denying a prediction based on something we don't see on screen.
I mean, we know she gets a barfing.
Do we?
Yeah, I don't know how you could throw up from drinking and not be hungover the next day.
Yeah, she gets sick. We know she gets sick.
Okay.
Like,
well, I think because we know she gets sick, we can go ahead and deny this one then. That Buffy was indeed hungover again. So that one's denied. I forgot about the sick element. That's good. Okay. In season 4, episode 10, Michael, you predicted that Tara will make fun of Xander. Dennis, when did this happen?
Oh,
Or
in
not?
the first episode of season 6, she makes fun of him. I think.
What did she say?
We leave this one open, or
We left it open. Apparently, we didn't confirm or deny.
did we
this one.
talk about
should
it?
have.
I don't
I don't
remember.
recall.
I'm sorry.
I don't.
I
I
think
think
she
we
makes-
talked about it.
Okay, yeah, I think she makes fun of him because she's like, he's like, who made you the boss? And she's like, you did. And then he said we voted, and then we, and then you
Oh,
made
that's
the
right. Okay.
plaque. Like,
All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that in. That happened in season 6, episode 1.
Wow.
Well done. Confirmed. Okay. Let's see. In the season 4 recap, Michael, you predicted that Tara and Willow will do a combined spell that will break the world in a good way. We've revisited this one a couple times. Dennis, why are we talking about that now?
oh, because in our Slack channel, which nobody could see but us, Travis brought up that we should have really confirmed that one when they resurrect Buffy.
I thought we talked about this at the time, and we decided that it didn't count.
I've changed my mind because I feel
Okay.
like I was just being too much of a dick. Because like resurrecting Buffy does break the world, and I think I was just like stuck on the idea that other people have been resurrected before. All right, I was being too much of a dick. I think
Okay.
this counts.
So because Dennis wants to stop being a dick, we will go ahead and confirm that one from
And to
season
be-
6,
and to be
episode
fair-
1. So we actually are doing quite a few retroactive confirmations here. And I will wait now for Michael to return.
Travis, what were you saying?
Oh, to be fair, I have no memory of that conversation we had on the episode. I don't think it's aired yet.
I mean, there's only about 500 predictions. Okay, so Michael, we have confirmed the prediction that Tara and Willow will do a combined spell that will break the world in a good way based upon the resurrection that happened in season 6, episode 1. We're doing a little bit of retroactive cleaning up of some predictions here.
I accept that one. I mean, that's not the type of prediction I was thinking when I made that, because I was thinking it would be more like a wish spell episode, but it is a pretty broke-ass spell.
I mean, so you're saying that you accept this check for one?
I do
confirmed
accept
prediction.
it, but I'm like, I don't think that's what I intended. But you know what? I
It's
can't
not
control.
about what you intended. It's never been about
No,
that.
that's
It's about
been
what's-
well substantiated. Yeah.
what is written in the spreadsheet. Okay. So season 5, episode 12, Michael, you predicted that Giles is going to do something dumb with the salary money that he gets. This is when he gets the retroactive salary. I would like to submit that this is that money. We don't know this for a fact, but I think we can safely assume that this is the salary that Giles got in one lump sum from
Certainly a
the
big
Watchers
chunk.
Council. And that he is doing something with it that is not dumb at all, that he's giving it to Buffy, which he really probably should have done sooner. So I'm going to deny this one unless anybody wants to argue that this is a different sum of money or that this is not that this is doing something dumb with it. All right. I hear no objections, so that's denied. This one's interesting. In season 5, episode 19, Michael, you predicted Buffy will go back to college in season 6. Now, she certainly goes to UC Sunnydale. She does not matriculate.
By our very literal definitions of going back.
I would feel like it's almost on Michael's side this time though, because he said she will go back to college. She went back to college. She went to classes.
It's true. If we're gonna be super literal, then I guess we have to confirm this one. Even though it's a fucking super prediction, this one's worth 5 times the normal amount.
God, you're ranking up. Even though this one seems to actually confirm the opposite, like it confirms she's not going to go back to college, you know?
Yep. Okay. Are you all right, Michael?
Yeah, I'm all right. Just your personal reaction to this is insane to me. I'm loving it.
Season 6, Episode 4. Jonathan and company will attempt hypnosis on Buffy. Did anything they do today constitute hypnosis? Because I feel like a number of the things that they do skirt a line close to hypnosis, but are they hypnosis?
I don't think so.
Dennis says no. Travis is shaking his head no. So we're going to maybe leave this one open. Yoder, do you have anything to add to that?
Maybe that's what they're building up to, you know? They're gathering data. So, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to leave that one open for now. Very good. Okay. Season 6, Episode 4, Michael, you predicted that Buffy will get Jonathan and company's cash. This would be the money they stole from the bank. Dennis, why did you highlight this one?
Because that money was clearly spent on the Death Star van.
Oh, you think that money's gone now? There's just no more left.
I mean,
it does seem like a bank robbery's worth of
money.
It does seem. Yeah, it does seem like they spent. Yeah, pretty tricked out van. Plus, like, technology doesn't even exist yet. Like, I don't know how they got that or where that even, how much money they had to spend to get that.
Yeah, how much for the tech, just for the inhibitor alone to make that thing? Like,
yeah, I think maybe we can go ahead and deny this one.
Oh, and then sorry, we should also deny the one below it.
Okay. And if we're going to deny that one, we also have to deny the next prediction, which is Buffy gives Jonathan and company's cash back to the bank. It doesn't get to be given back to the bank because it is spent on a Death Star van.
It's interesting that you're resolving this now because you think all the money is used, because this is clearly never dealt with again. Because I don't think that there's any evidence that this is all spent.
Finally,
except that you're...
I mean, you can use this to fuel future predictions, Michael, if you know, any information source is valid other than you watching ahead, I suppose. Or Googling it. I don't know. All right. Season 6, Episode 4 as well. Michael, you predicted that we will never meet Giles' friend in Bath. Dennis, why are we talking about this?
I don't know. You highlighted this one.
Did I?
Oh, I didn't.
Given 1, 2, 3... 4 denials and 2 confirmations. 3 confirmations, excuse me.
Yeah, and one is a super confirmation.
Yeah, that's right. Michael, your overall accuracy is now a 62.07, so you went up 0.5% there. And your accuracy for this season is now a 62.5, so you gained 2.5% there. Or no, sorry, you lost several percent there. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
It was 70. Sorry. It was 70. Sorry.
It's a major
You lost
drop.
3.5% or 7.5% there. Excuse me.
I have to just say at this point, I think the trio's point counting system makes more sense to me almost than the spreadsheet thing.
The irony of this did not occur to me literally until I watched this episode. It's really uncomfortable how close these guys hit to home.
Yeah.
Well, I've got more predictions here because I can't help it, because that's how this game is played. Okay, prediction 1. Giles will disappoint Buffy in season 6. This cash handoff that just happened from Giles to Buffy, this is layered with potential and deep disappointment. Like, the cash doesn't come with, him also being a father figure that cares. So I think that there'll be a greater disappointment.
I'm just hiding my face.
Sure. The trio, which I'm now calling them, will reuse the demon costume that Jonathan wears from Life Serial. I think it's too good a costume not to use again. I don't know where it comes from. Some kind of magic. Maybe it's the bone. Who knows? But they'll reuse that demon costume. And you know what I'm talking about, right? The Hellboy costume. Great. Andrew of the trio will wear another sexist shirt. He can't help it. Buffy will never work as a construction worker again. And my super prediction, because I think the trio is a harmless group of guys that are just having fun, no one in the trio will be killed in season 6. I think they're unkillable, evil genies, and they're just fun to have. It's they're like Qs. You get 3 Qs in this world, and they're unkillable.
Your predictions have been noted in the prediction log.
All right. I've been your host, Dennis St. John. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Dennis Comics. That's DenisComix. And that is also my .com. David Yoder, where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter as Awesome Yoder. It's the word awesome and my last name Yoder, Yoder. Maybe I'll start making them comics sometime again soon. I don't know. I've been in a real lazy mood lately, so sorry if you're looking for those.
Thank you one and all for listening and talking to us at Buffy Virgin. Please rate and review and subscribe. We really like it, and we like talking to you. You can watch our YouTube. Our Twitter is at Buffy Virgin Pod, and our Instagram is Buffy Virgin, where we post stuff. So you can check us out at buffyvirgin.com. Sorry, I already said that. Reach out. We love to hear from you, and we'll see you in hell.